To further help us understand this story, we welcome Borzou Daragahi to the studio. Thank you so much for being here. You are an international correspondent for The Independent, as well as a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Really appreciate you being here with us today. I want to start with the confusion over the morality police. I mean, it's confusing messaging because now the Attorney General appears to be backtracking his own comments. What's the latest that you're hearing?
Well, I mean, this is a very important part of the Islamic Republic, the morality police and the enforcement of the hijab. And over the last few months, because of the unrest, they've ceased enforcing the hijab, and women are going out without without the hijab and dressing how they like. And he was asked at a meeting, what's up with this? What's going on? And he made an offhand remark, and it just kind of went viral. What is true is that the Parliament has commissioned a committee to study the issue of hijab and other public morality issues and could come back with its findings in a couple weeks. What is also very much true is that the law on mandatory hijab remains in Iran. It is the law of the land, and that has not changed.
So you think it was just an accidental offhand remark? Because one of the things I wondered was it seems there's no way that he would have said this without permission from the Ayatollah.
All he said was that the morality, he made an empirical statement saying that the morality police have stopped enforcing the dress codes. And that is an empirical statement. And what he said is that me, as the judiciary, I don't have any control over this.
Okay. How do you think protesters are taking this? If it's true, or if it potentially could happen, would that be something that would placate protesters?
I don't think it would placate protesters. And that is because over the years, morality enforcement, hijab enforcement has waxed and waned. Some years, some months, it's a little bit harsher. Some years, some months, it's a little bit looser. And this is kind of a game that the regime has played to keep people in line, keep people on their toes, never quite sure what the morality police are going to do. Should you be afraid of them today? Should you not? And this is kind of a distraction and a way of, and a tool of repression. And so I don't think that people will fall for it.
Speaking more about the repression tactics, I mean, we've seen protesters being detained, some being sentenced to death. We've seen a number of famous people in Iran, musicians included, being arrested. What is the current status of the tactics, the fear tactics being used by police there?
Yeah, I think that the fear of imprisonment is something. Just recently, 4 people accused of being spies for Israel were put to death, according to the regime. And this is a signal to people that, look, we will impose harsh measures on you. I spoke to someone in Iran who is facing a prison sentence, and she's been hearing from people inside prison that the prisons are completely full. The exact thing she said was that there's no space even for a needle to drop. And there's no place to sleep at night in certain wards of Evin prison. And so she's dreading being summoned to prison to carry out her sentence. And so, that is something that people are afraid of as well.
But how much longer could the regime continue this then? If there's no space in the prisons, the protesters aren't giving up. So where can they go from here?
I mean, as far as the regime is concerned, they're trying to keep the numbers of protests and protesters down, discouraging them in any way they can, and then using force as non-lethal as possible, as far as they're concerned, to keep the numbers of people off the streets, and then hope for the best in the coming months and weeks. But according to a leaked report that was obtained through a hacking collective, the Supreme Leader's office, the Office of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, has very discouraging prognosis of what's going on in the country and believes that the protests will continue indefinitely.
I want to ask you finally about this general strike. Is this something that could move the needle at all? What's the overall goal? Is it more economic, or is it just to get more people free to go out on the streets?
I think it's neither. It's economic, yes, it damages the regime, but it's part of a strategy to mobilize the population, get people involved, get those who are sitting on the fence to make a stand. You're either with the protesters or you're not. And so this is part of the strategy of mobilizing the society. Protest leaders know that there's going to be months, maybe even years ahead before there's going to be a breakthrough.
And from what you're seeing, is it being widely adopted, the strike?
Well, today it does appear that the strike is being adopted. It does seem also that it's kind of intermittent based on people's ability. Some shops can't stay closed all the time, so they pick and choose when they can close and close up shop so that they mitigate the economic damage to themselves and their families.